Her mum said to him, "How's she going?" And he said, "Yeah." And then obviously they tried to speak discreetly next to me, but it was something along the lines of, she pulled up, saw this today, and we tried to see if she was all right, but...
Pay very close attention, because the entire narrative surrounding CaitlinClark has just taken a dramatic and unexpected turn, and this development is far bigger than most people realize. We're talking about a game-changing revelation that has sent shockwaves across the basketball world. For the first time, her parents publicly stepped forward and shared information that nobody saw coming, and what they revealed has completely divided the WNBA community, creating intense debate and drawing a clear line straight down the middle between fans, analysts, and insiders alike.
She is not going to be benched if she's not injured, or she's not going to do any damage to herself. Like, she is a true competitor to her core. Seriously, this is Caitlin not playing. This is her wishing she was on the floor. This is her going, "God, get me out there." She said recently, like, being on the bench, yes, she wants to be one of the best teammates she can in terms of being supportive, but God knows she does not.
You're already past the surface reaction.
Standing firmly on one side of this growing divide are the millions of passionate fans who have followed CaitlinClark's journey every step of the way, carefully watching every assist, every breathtaking highlight, and every packed arena she has helped create. They've embraced her rookie season with unmatched dedication and excitement, turning each game into a must-watch event and treating her remarkable rise as something far bigger than just another basketball story.
Said to him, "How's she going?" And he said, "Yeah." And then obviously they tried to speak discreetly next to me, but it was something along the lines of, she pulled up, saw this today, and we tried to see if she was all right, but we just made a decision.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the debate, there are plenty of people who have been anticipating a moment exactly like this, some quietly behind the scenes and others very publicly from the start. That's what makes this situation so significant and impossible to ignore. Because if these reports hold any truth, and if the Indiana Fever are genuinely at risk of losing CaitlinClark, then the entire landscape of the WNBA could shift in an instant, triggering consequences that would completely reshape conversations around the league overnight.
Kelly Crosskoff, Amber Cox move right here. Doing a last-minute update. CaitlinClark is not playing tonight. And I gotta count my blessings that I was able to watch CaitlinClark. I was able to get signatures, the whole everything with her. I got the CaitlinClark experience twice this year. I feel bad for the fans that travel so far to go see her play, and they won't be able to see her tonight. And they pull the carpet underneath all those fans. This is wrong, guys.
What we're witnessing here isn't just a potential change for the Fever. It's a moment that could completely reshape the franchise's future, redefine the league's biggest success story, and alter the entire conversation surrounding where women's basketball heads next. This goes far beyond a routine roster decision or another contract discussion happening behind the scenes. It's the kind of franchise-defining move that sports fans and analysts could be debating for years. And the most surprising part, the discussion was sparked by the two people who know CaitlinClark better than any executive, coach, or league official ever could: her own parents. What they recently shared has placed this entire story at a critical turning point. It could be the first sign of a remarkable era coming to an unexpected end, or it could prove that much of the media narrative has missed the mark entirely. Naturally, the biggest question is whether her parents truly confirmed anything, or if this is another headline that falls apart once the facts are examined closely. And if there is truth behind it, why now, when momentum around her and the Fever has never been stronger? Just consider the timing. She has spent the last year transforming Indiana into one of the most talked about teams in basketball. So why would she choose to walk away from everything she helped build? But an even bigger question quickly emerges. Was Indiana always meant to be her long-term destination, or was it simply the first chapter of a much larger journey? And for Fever fans, that's where things become uncomfortable. If she leaves, does the franchise lose everything she created, or has she already built a culture strong enough to survive without her? Then comes the question few people are ready to answer, the one that could change everything moving forward. The bigger issue here isn't just what this could mean for the Fever, it's what it could mean for the WNBA as a whole. Let's be honest, CaitlinClark didn't simply attract more fans to Indiana, she introduced an entirely new audience to the league. And if she were ever to leave, or even become the center of serious departure rumors, there's no guarantee those new viewers stay invested. That's why this story has sparked such a strong reaction across the basketball world. In this breakdown, we're going to examine exactly what her parents said, why the response has been so divided, and what the real contract and franchise situation in Indiana actually looks like beyond the rumors spreading online. More importantly, we'll explore what the numbers suggest could happen to the Fever, national television ratings, and the league's historic growth if Clark's future in Indiana truly becomes uncertain. Nothing is being overlooked, and nothing is being softened. We're focusing on the facts. But before we go further, I want your opinion. Do you believe CaitlinClark has already played her final season with Indiana, or is this entire story being blown out of proportion? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate is only getting louder. Now, let's start with one important fact. CaitlinClark has never been known as someone who backs away from competition. Throughout her career, her relentless drive to compete has been one of her defining traits, and that's never really been up for debate. It's been on display every time she's stepped onto the court. That's why it immediately stands out when people closest to her begin publicly emphasizing how badly she wants to play. Normally, that kind of defense wouldn't even be necessary. Nobody holds a press conference to remind fans that elite superstars want to compete. The moment those conversations become part of the public narrative, it usually signals that something more complicated is happening behind the scenes. When trusted members of her inner circle feel the need to address it directly, it suggests growing concern about public perception and increasing questions surrounding her current situation. And that's the part of this story that deserves far more attention. Because let's face it, nobody has ever questioned CaitlinClark's competitive drive. Anyone who has watched her play knows she wants to be on the court whenever possible. The real question isn't whether she wants to play, it's who is making the final decision to keep her sidelined and whether Clark fully agrees with that decision. By now, most fans have moved beyond the obvious reaction. Of course, she wants to compete. That was never the issue. The deeper question is who has the authority to override that desire and why. Is Indiana simply being cautious with the long-term health of its biggest star, or is there a more complicated situation unfolding behind the scenes that fans haven't been told about? The discussion becomes even more intriguing when those closest to Clark feel compelled to publicly defend her eagerness to return. That naturally raises questions about whether growing tension exists between Clark and the organization regarding her recovery, workload, and overall management. And if that's the case, the conversation changes entirely. Imagine a generational talent stuck on the bench, visibly eager to play, while thousands of fans fill arenas hoping to watch her compete. Situations like that rarely fade away on their own. Instead, the pressure continues to build with every passing game. Once you view it through that lens, questions about her future in Indiana no longer feel like random internet chatter. They begin to carry real significance. At the very least, the Fever appear to be facing a serious communication challenge, and if not handled carefully, it could eventually impact the relationship with the most important player in the franchise. Here's what makes this situation so fascinating. When people from a superstar's inner circle publicly step forward to defend her desire to compete, that's rarely a random decision. Moves like that are usually a response to something significant, whether it's growing internal disagreement, relentless media speculation, or a combination of both. Throughout sports history, when an organization's decisions repeatedly clash with how a franchise player views her role and future, the outcome often becomes predictable. Players don't always leave amid public drama or explosive headlines. More often, they quietly move on when the first realistic opportunity presents itself. Now, to be fair, Indiana's decision to keep Clark out could be completely justified from a medical standpoint. It may even be the smartest long-term choice for protecting her career. But the bigger issue isn't necessarily the decision itself, It's how that decision has been communicated. Or perhaps more importantly, how it hasn't been communicated. That's where frustration begins to grow among fans and potentially within Clark's own circle. In professional sports, trust is one of the most valuable assets an organization has, and once questions start forming around communication and transparency, those concerns rarely disappear overnight. They tend to linger and grow. That's why this story continues gaining attention. The focus is no longer just on missed games. It's on whether everyone involved remains fully aligned behind the scenes. And that brings us to an interesting moment. According to reports, Clark's parents were in the arena when a nearby bystander allegedly overheard part of a conversation, setting off an entirely new wave of discussion surrounding the situation. And this is where the story takes an even more interesting turn because one small detail from that conversation has become the center of the entire debate. The reported quote was simple: "She pulled up. We saw this today. We made a decision to sit her out." Pay close attention to those words. They didn't say the team made the decision. They didn't specifically credit the medical staff or coaching staff. Instead, the phrase, "we made a decision," immediately caught people's attention because it sounded personal, informal, and completely unofficial. What's even more surprising is that this information didn't come through a formal statement, a team spokesperson, or an official injury update. It reportedly came from a casual courtside conversation overheard by someone nearby. For a situation involving one of the most important players in the sport, that's an unusual way for critical information to reach the public. And that's exactly why so many questions are being raised. Organizations at this level have dedicated communications teams, medical experts, and public relations departments specifically designed to handle situations like this. Yet somehow, one of the clearest explanations regarding Clark's status emerged from an overheard conversation rather than an official source. Whether that's simply a communication breakdown or evidence of a larger issue remains unclear, but it has undoubtedly fueled speculation. Naturally, many fans immediately focused on one question: were her parents actually involved in the decision-making process? Because if that's what the comment suggests, it introduces an entirely new layer to the story. Family support is common in professional sports, but when relatives appear to be publicly connected to decisions involving player availability, people start wondering whether communication between the player and organization is as strong as it should be. And once those questions surface, the discussion quickly shifts from a routine injury situation to a broader conversation about trust, transparency, and how the franchise is managing its most valuable star. The questions only become harder from here. If the organization truly had complete control of this injury situation, why did an overheard conversation involving Clark's parents become the clearest source of information available that night? That's what continues to fuel speculation. The next obvious question is equally important. What exactly was the injury concern, and why wasn't that information communicated more clearly to the fans who invested their time, money, and attention into the game? But beneath those questions lies a much bigger issue. If Clark's parents are this involved in discussions surrounding her health and game availability, what does that reveal about the level of trust currently existing between Clark and the Fever organization? In most successful franchises, these situations follow a predictable pattern. The player trusts the medical staff, the organization provides clear updates, and the family remains in a supportive role away from the decision-making spotlight. That's why this situation has attracted so much attention. Instead of official statements driving the conversation, much of the public discussion has been shaped by comments reportedly coming from those closest to Clark. Whether that reflects a simple communication failure or something more significant is the question many fans are now asking. What makes this especially notable is that the normal process appears reversed. Rather than receiving answers directly from the organization, people found themselves analyzing comments connected to Clark's family in search of clarity. And when that happens, it naturally creates more uncertainty, more speculation, and more scrutiny around how the franchise is handling one of the most important players in the league. At the very least, it suggests there are communication gaps that Indiana will eventually need to address if it wants to regain control of the narrative surrounding its biggest star. This isn't the kind of mistake a franchise can simply brush aside. In today's WNBA, player influence is stronger than ever, superstar leverage continues to grow, and every season can shape an athlete's long-term future. In that environment, communication problems rarely stay hidden. They eventually become public, influence major career decisions, and often play a role in determining whether a star remains with a franchise. The Fever may genuinely believe they handled Clark's situation correctly from a medical perspective, and they may very well be right. But professional sports aren't judged solely by the decision itself. They're also judged by how that decision is communicated. When communication breaks down, even reasonable choices can create lasting public relations damage. And the concern here extends far beyond frustrated fans. The bigger issue is whether situations like this slowly erode the trust that ultimately influences a player's future with an organization. That's what makes this story so significant. Right now, many Fever fans aren't talking about championship aspirations or playoff scenarios. Instead, they're simply hoping for the chance to watch the player who has become the face of the franchise. For many supporters, seeing Clark on the court has become the main event, and that shift in mindset says a lot. What's particularly concerning is that some fans no longer sound angry, they sound resigned. And in many ways, resignation can be more damaging than outrage. Anger eventually fades, but lowered expectations can become permanent. When loyal supporters start convincing themselves to expect less, it's often because disappointment has become familiar. That's why one fan reaction stands out above the rest. The feeling that the rug was pulled out from under them isn't directed at Clark. It reflects frustration with how the situation has been managed and communicated. At its core, the criticism isn't about the player being unavailable. It's about fans feeling left in the dark by the organization responsible for providing answers. What makes this situation different is that most fans aren't blaming CaitlinClark at all. They understand she wants to be on the court. Their frustration is aimed squarely at a system they feel keeps failing them with late decisions and limited communication. And that distinction matters because it directly impacts the relationship between the franchise and the wave of new supporters who recently invested in the team. Most people can relate to that feeling. You've probably experienced a moment where you showed up excited, invested your time and money, and left feeling disappointed by something you never saw coming. That's why many fans are now asking a simple question. How many times can this happen before it becomes a serious credibility issue for the organization? At some point, repeated frustration stops feeling like bad luck and starts looking like a pattern. But the conversation extends beyond Indiana. It raises broader questions about the responsibility professional sports leagues have toward fans who travel long distances and spend significant money specifically to watch star players. Should teams and leagues do more to provide clarity when marquee athletes are unavailable, or is purchasing a ticket simply part of accepting that uncertainty? Those questions become even more important when considering the audience Clark has brought to the league. Many of these fans are not longtime supporters with years of loyalty built into their relationship with the sport. They're new viewers who became interested because of Clark and are still deciding whether to stay engaged. That's why first impressions matter so much. New fans are forming opinions about the league in real time, and those opinions can become difficult to change once negative experiences begin to feel repetitive. If the league wants to retain the massive audience that has recently arrived, creating trust and transparency with those fans may be just as important as anything that happens on the court. Right now, the WNBA is experiencing a level of growth that few could have imagined just a few years ago. Attendance records are being broken, television audiences are expanding, and the league is enjoying a surge of mainstream attention unlike anything in its history. The momentum is real, but it's also delicate. New fans don't respond to disappointment the same way longtime supporters do. They haven't spent years building emotional loyalty to teams and players, which means negative experiences can have a much greater impact. Imagine a first-time fan driving hours, paying for tickets, travel, merchandise, and accommodations, only to discover at the last moment that the player they came to watch won't be on the court. That experience doesn't automatically create a loyal fan for the future. In many cases, it creates frustration that gets shared with friends, family, and other potential fans. That's why situations like this extend far beyond a single lineup decision. The concern isn't just about one game. It's about protecting the trust and excitement fueling the league's current growth. What makes this story even more significant is that many of the people raising concerns aren't casual observers. Some of the most frustrated voices are dedicated fans who closely follow every update, report, and development surrounding CaitlinClark and the Fever. They're paying attention to the details, which is why communication gaps stand out so clearly. And that's how a seemingly minor courtside conversation quickly evolved into something much bigger. What began as an overheard comment has now sparked broader questions about transparency, communication, and how one of the league's most important franchises is handling the player at the center of the WNBA's biggest growth period. Right now, what we're witnessing goes far beyond a simple injury update or a few missed games. We're looking at a franchise that is facing serious questions about communication, transparency, and its ability to maintain trust with both its star player and its rapidly growing fan base. The frustration surrounding these situations isn't being fueled by one isolated decision. It's the accumulation of repeated moments that have left fans feeling confused, disappointed, and increasingly skeptical about the information they're receiving. When you step back and examine the bigger picture, the warning signs become difficult to ignore. The viewership numbers, the public reactions, the growing criticism online, and the recurring communication issues all point toward the same concern. Trust is slowly being eroded. And in professional sports, trust is one of the most valuable assets any organization can possess. Winning games can repair many problems, but once players and fans begin questioning whether they can rely on the organization, rebuilding that confidence becomes an incredibly difficult task. For the Indiana Fever, this isn't just about protecting a season. It's about protecting the future of a franchise that suddenly finds itself at the center of the WNBA's biggest growth era. CaitlinClark isn't simply another talented player on the roster. She is one of the most influential athletes in the sport today and a major reason millions of new fans are paying attention. How the organization handles situations involving its biggest star will shape public perception for years to come. If meaningful changes aren't made, the criticism won't come from rivals or internet trolls alone. The narrative will write itself. Every communication mistake, every confusing update, and every avoidable controversy will continue to fuel questions about whether the franchise is truly maximizing the opportunities sitting right in front of it. That's why the decisions made over the coming months could be just as important as anything that happens on the court. What do you think? Is the criticism toward the Fever justified, or are fans overreacting to a difficult situation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown and want more in-depth analysis that goes beyond the headlines, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.